Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Montarctica podcast. I'm lucky today get to sit down with David Packouz. Is that how we pronounce your name right?
That is exactly correct.
Got a pretty unique story, and how I came across David is I'm obviously a musician too, and I've always wondered how can I find a drum beat, and so I started searching. Actually, I was searching on YouTube for a drum machine, and I mean I've used different programs and whatnot, but nothing's ever worked out well while you're playing live, so I searched and come across the Beat Buddy, and I was like, I think I've seen one of your videos talking about it. Well,
Yeah.
and then I friended you on Facebook, and then I look and I'm like, wow, you've got an incredibly unique story.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Before that, and then also the Beat Buddy and everything else. But
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, to say the least.
I bet. So have you played music your whole life, or?
Well, I've sung my whole life. My mother is a singer and a guitarist as well, and so we always, had that, bond where we would sing together. She loves doing harmonies.
Oh, yeah.
When I was 15, she taught me how to play guitar. So I've been playing since I was 15.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's about the same as me. My dad was actually is a country musician, and
Cool.
he started teaching me when I was young. But man, I for some reason you never really want to listen to your dad, so I kind of put it off and then learned on my own eventually. But you and I are actually, I was looking at your biography, we're exactly the same. We're pretty close to the same age. So
Cool.
Born in '82. But and then so how everybody else would probably know you other than the Beat Buddy is the movie War Dogs is written about your story as a young guy.
Yes, exactly.
You want to touch on that a little bit and see how,
Yeah, sure. It's my claim to fame, I guess you could say.
I guess. I mean, that's
Yeah, more so than my current work. Yeah, War Dogs, if for those of your listeners who haven't heard of it, it was a Hollywood movie, came out in 2016, done by the same director who did The Joker, Todd Phillips. Stars Jonah Hill plays one of the main characters, and Miles Teller plays the other main character, who is me, David Packouz. They use my name. And it was made it's based on a true story, my story. When I was in my early 20s, I got involved with a friend of mine, the guy who Jonah Hill plays, and we were international arms dealers, selling weapons and ammunition mostly to the U.S. government. I mean, it was all legal until it wasn't.
Yeah. So, were you really a sheet salesman, massage therapist before then? Is that?
Yes, actually, that is actually true. Not in the exact way they portray it in the movie. Of course, the movie changes things, to make it more Hollywood.
Yeah.
In real life, what I was doing was, so in the movie, they try to make, the comparison between, the before and the after, as big as possible for the dramatic effect, right? So they have me really down on my luck. I'm like, struggling, to make ends meet, blah, 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 right? Going from one nursing home to another, trying to sell these sheets and getting rejected all the way. It wasn't exactly how it happened. I was wholesaling them. I never even actually went to the nursing home. I was selling to distributors. It was all, and I was making money at it. I wasn't making like a huge amount of money, but I was, making a decent side hustle, so to speak.
Not
I was also
dealer money.
I'm sorry?
Not arms dealer money?
No, definitely not arms dealer money, but it was enough to get me by. I was in college at the time too. I was studying chemistry. I was also working part-time as a massage therapist. I also had another side business. I was importing, memory chips from China to sell on eBay. So like I had a few kind of hustles to get me through college, and the sheets thing was one of them. But because I was importing bed sheets and towels as well, from India and Pakistan into the United States. I learned how the whole international import-export system worked and logistics and all that. So that's kind of how I got my introduction into that. And then I bumped into my friend, the guy who Jonah Hill plays, and he he heard about my sheet import business, and he was like, "Oh, you're wasting your time with that stuff. You know, you should come and join me in my business, arms dealing. I'm doing really well because there's these, you know, enormous wars going on, you know, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the United States is spending like $1 trillion, you know, on these wars, and we can, you know, make money doing that. Selling to the U.S. government because they're spending so much money on this stuff. And I've been doing this for, you know, around 2 years, and you can join me and be my partner." And at the time, he was 18 years old. He had been kicked out of high school for smoking weed, you know, so
Yeah.
that's how he started. He learned the business from his uncle, who was out in LA. And I asked him, you know, like, how much money have you made? And he told me, he's like, you know, I'm not saying this to brag, but just to inspire you, I have $1.8 million in the bank. And he like opened up his bank account and he showed me, and he was like 18. And he was like a self-made guy. So I was like, wow, this guy is, you know, a lot more money than I was making selling sheets.
Yeah.
So I figured, you know, this guy knows how to make money, and I wanted to learn what he was doing. So I started working with him, and around a year after we started working together, we won the famous contract that they, you know, based a large part of the movie about. It was one of the biggest small arms contracts in history. It was to arm the entire Afghan National Army, you know, because the United States was trying to build a country there, and part of that, you know, so the U.S. could pull the troops out, and part of that was to arm their police and their army so that they could be self-sufficient. That was the idea. So the U.S. government, you know, they didn't manufacture the types of weapons and ammunition that the Afghans are used to, which is Warsaw Pact type of ammunition, like the AK-47.
Yeah.
So they put out an open bid on the market saying, "Hey, this is what we're looking to buy," and we submitted by far the cheapest bid, the least expensive, and we
Yeah.
beat like our competitor, as they showed in the movie, by like over $50 million. And the total value of the contract was around $300 million, which was like 15 times bigger than anything we'd done before. I mean, we'd been
Yeah.
doing multi-million-dollar contracts before this, but nothing even close to this scale.
Yeah.
So we won this contract, and that obviously made us a lot of enemies who were very powerful
Yeah. I
because
suppose. I mean, it's crazy how young you were doing. I mean.
yeah, they didn't like that. We beat like a bunch of Fortune 500 companies who were
Yeah.
bidding on it, and they were not happy. And so they started spreading rumors about us that we were like doing illegal things, which we weren't at the
Yeah.
time. And which they opened up an investigation into us, and that kind of got us on the Justice Department radar. And then a few months into the contract, we discovered that some of the ammunition we were supplying was had originally come from China. We didn't know it at the, you know, before we went over to inspect it. It's from the ammunition was in Albania, but they had originally gotten it from China in the 70s, and our contract said we couldn't deliver Chinese ammunition. So so I mean, the movie gives the whole story. We ended up, you know, repackaging it and got into a bunch of legal trouble, and I ended up getting very lucky. I only got 7 months of house arrest. I didn't do any you know, prison time. But so while I was under house arrest for 7 months, which actually nowadays seems kind of normal. Everyone seems to
Yeah.
be under like, the usual thing. But back then, you know, like that was, you know, I was just like sitting at home for 7 months. It wasn't a normal thing. So I was playing a lot of guitar, and, you know, couldn't play with any drummers. You know, I see you have a nice drum set in the background there.
One here.
I had a tiny little apartment and
I
no drum.
dabble in the drums. I'm not that good. That's why I had to order the Beat Buddy. But
Yeah, you need something to play to.
well, and you
So
can't play both at the same time. So
exactly, which is exactly the issue I faced.
yeah.
So I bought a drum machine, you know, the tabletop type drum machine that are
Yeah.
mainly used. But every time I wanted, you know, to change the beat, like when you go from verse to chorus, I had to like stop playing my guitar, press the button on the machine, go back to playing my guitar. It interrupted the rhythm. So I had the idea, I'm like, I need a drum machine in a pedal that's easy to use, hands-free. sounds good, ideally, and I went online and trying to find it, and I couldn't find anything. And I asked my musician friends if they'd seen anything like that, and they hadn't seen anything, but they wanted one too. If I found it, they told me to let them. So I thought, well, if nobody's making it and everyone wants it, that's a good product to develop.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about developing products or anything like that. I was, at this point, I had only done broker deals, buy from this guy, sell to that guy. I had never created anything new, so I had no idea how to do it. So I started Googling, like how to develop electronic products and things like that. And I found a bunch of companies who promised to take it from sketch to manufacturing, was the way they put it. But of course I had no idea, who was good and who wasn't good, and no way. And I wasn't, an engineer myself, so I couldn't tell, who was good. And at first I picked the cheapest guy, which was always a mistake. Yeah. Wasted like 9 months of my time and a bunch of money, and then I realized that was probably not a good idea. So I went back to all the quotes I got. I got maybe 10 different quotes and I decided to go with the people who seemed to know what they were doing, which are the people who gave me the most detailed proposal, where they broke the whole process down into all the subcomponents, and they listed, what type of, specialist needed for each particular step of the job and how long it would take. And it seemed like they really had a plan, It was by far the most detailed. So I went with them, and they did know what they were doing, and they built the prototype. And but of course I was completely broke by that point. I had spent all my money on lawyers, so to keep me out of prison. So I didn't have enough money to pay these guys, the engineers, to do it. So luckily, the head engineer was a drummer, and he told me, he's like, I don't have time to play with all my musician friends. They're always asking me to jam, and I know that they would love this thing. So I know this is going to be successful. So I want to be able to, work out the payment terms in a way that you could actually do this. Cause I told him I didn't have the money for it.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'll tell you what, I'll build the prototype. You'll give me a small down payment, which also happened to equal every last penny I had. And, relative to how much I needed to build the thing, small down payment. And around 20% of what I needed to pay him, I think it was what it came out to. And the deal was that he would build it, and I would take that prototype and go to a crowdfunding campaign to get the rest of the money and to do manufacturing. And if the crowdfunding campaign didn't raise enough money, then he would do the manufacturing and take a cut of the profits, so he could make money that way. Because he knew it was going to be popular, because he knew the market since he was a drummer. So we did that. And in 2014, I launched the Beat Buddy on crowdfunding, and it became the most successful crowdfunding campaign for a musician's product ever at the time. We raised $350,000 in a month.
Wow.
And that was enough to pay the engineers and to get manufacturing going and start my company, Singular Sound. Yeah. And since then we've developed a bunch of other new products. We came out with the Beat Buddy Mini, which is a less expensive version of the Beat Buddy. We came out with the MIDI Maestro, which is you know what? I should probably just show it to you guys, since so your listeners know what we're talking about. Give me 1 second. Hold on. So, all right. So this is, I've got the retail box here. This is the Beat Buddy, the original, the one that started it all. It's a pedal. And this is the Beat Buddy Mini, which is very similar to the Beat Buddy. It just has a bit less functionality, but it's half the price. These are our newer products, the MIDI Maestro.
Oh, wow.
And, this thing, it connects to the Beat Buddy, not the Beat Buddy Mini. That it doesn't have that kind of connection, but and all these buttons give you a whole bunch of new functionality that you could control the Beat Buddy in a more granular way. You have a lot more capabilities, a lot more things you could do with it. And you could also use this to control other devices as well. It's a universal MIDI controller. So any device that has MIDI controls, which is for those of your listeners who don't know, it's the standard language that electronic products, music products talk to each other. So you could program the MIDI Maestro to control those products as well. Nice. And the latest thing is the Eros Loop Studio.
Yeah, that thing's super cool.
Yeah, and this is the world's most advanced looper pedal. It's got a touch screen. Obviously, it looks a lot better when it's on. Yeah. It's got like visual feedback. It's like kind of like a DAW, like a digital audio workstation, a recording studio in your pedal. So you can create loops live and make multi-part arrangements, and multi-track parts. So you can have pretty much infinite layers and complex musical arrangements on the fly. So and we're developing additional products as well, to come out. So so that's what I do now. I went from arms dealer to music tech developer.
So have you done anything with your chemistry from college then at all now?
Yeah, no, I never ended up doing anything. I mean, I've always been interested in science and tech. So that's always interested me, but no, I never actually used my chemistry education for anything that I've done. I studied a bit of mechanical engineering, which was more useful for my current work, but I don't know enough engineering to actually do that myself. So I just hire people who know more than me, and I tell them this is what I want it to look like, this is how I want it to work, and they build it.
So are you still using the same manufacturing company that you started with?
Yeah, for the Beat Buddy, we are still using. We have three other manufacturers as well, who make our other products. So the Beat Buddy and the Beat Buddy Mini are with the original manufacturing company that we started with. The MIDI Maestro and the Eros are a different one. We also have another product called the Cably, which, let me grab it. Hold on. So this is our simplest, excuse me. This is our simplest product. This is not an electronic product. It's called the Cably, and pretty much what it's a cable winder. So the idea is that, your audio cables, are usually a big tangled mess on the floor, and, it takes forever to put them away, especially if you have a bunch of cables.
I have a full bag right behind me full of them.
There you So, I came up with this idea because I was doing some gigs here in Miami. Yep. And, I use the Beat Buddy, I use vocal effects, I use guitar effects. I have like an amp modeler. So like I have like 7 different cables that I have to, wrap up at the end of a show. And I was playing with a bass player, and he uses one cable. He just plugs right into the PA, so it's like this guy, he's like done in like 30 seconds, and it takes me like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to put all my cables away, especially if you're doing it properly and the whole over under thing, there's a correct way.
Oh yeah. I DJ too also. So I do like wedding DJ and stuff, and anybody that's ever came and helped me tear down knows I'm pretty anal about wrapping my cords up, but that's awesome. Yeah. I didn't even know you had that.
Yeah, so it's a big pain, and I wanted something that, would make putting all that away faster. So what I came up with was the Cably, which is very simple. It's a cable spool. The way it works is you just take the cable on the end and then just go to the midpoint. So that's the midpoint right there. And you just take that midpoint and put it right there where you have, I don't know if you could see it.
Oh, yeah.
That arrow. You see this round thing, that's what we call the pinch preventer, that gives the cable minimum radius so that it doesn't get damaged in there. Oh, nice. So it doesn't get kinked. And you just pull it down like that. And now you only need to install it once. The idea is it's 1 cable per Cably, and you keep it in there permanently. Whenever you want to put it away, you just wrap it up, and boom, and it's all nice and protected. If you step on it, it won't get damaged. You don't need to do the whole over under. You saw it just took me like 2-3 seconds, the whole thing. And whenever you want to use the cable, you just pull on this as much as you need,
Well,
which is an additional advantage, because if you have like a 20-foot cable but you're only like 3 feet from your amp,
yeah,
there's a tangled spaghetti mess between you and your
I
amp.
get that all the time. Yeah,
Exactly. So with the cable, you can leave all the excess cable inside, and then you just have as much cable as you need, and you
nice.
just on the floor in between you and your amp, and you plug it in. It keeps the stage neater, looking nicer, safer, because you don't trip over it. The cable doesn't get dirty from like people spilling beer or whatever,
Exactly.
or stepping on your cable. So yeah, so this is our low tech product. All our other products are high tech,
Yeah.
and also our least expensive one. This is $20.
Well, not at all.
Yeah, and it's also got like a nice little loop here, so you could hang it on a rack, in your studio. And we also like have a little gig bag. You could fit like 5 of these inside, like a little duffel bag, so you have like all your cables, for your gig. Nice and neat. So this is obviously a very different product than the other one. So we have a separate manufacturer who does this.
Oh yeah,
Just for your listeners, if they're curious, this is $20 a unit.
nice.
The Beat Buddy Mini is $150. The Beat Buddy is $300. I should say $299.99,
Yeah,
right?
99.
And the MIDI Maestro is also $299,
Nice.
and the Eros is $599.
Yep.
Flagship.
Watching the demos on that thing. That thing looks incredibly cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I have like the Boss 20 looper that I had, but watching that is, man, that's way better machine.
Yeah, it's the next level. It's
You invent them all yourself? Is that, or do
Yeah.
you have like an R&D team, or you just come up with these ideas?
So the ideas are mine.
Yeah.
I come up with the ideas myself, but obviously I talk about it,
Yeah.
with my team. I do have, a great team at my company. We're not a big company. We're like 14 people in
Nice.
total. So not tiny, but definitely not big.
Are they all out of Miami too? Is that?
So I believe, off the top of my head, I think there's 8 of us in Miami, and the rest are like kind of spread out. We have like a graphic artist who lives in like South Carolina, who works for us full time. He does like marketing materials. So we have some people spread out, but the core team is in Miami. The product development people, who I like brainstorm with, are here. Most of the marketing people are here. We've got a few computer programmers, kind of spread out, because computer programming is more of a like a lone job, so you don't really need to be in the same place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I generally the way it works is I come up with the idea. I think, man, I wish I had this, just like what I did with the Beat Buddy or with the Cably or the Eros. Actually, all of these products came. I had the ideas because I wish they existed, and the Beat Buddy, as I said the story, but the way I came up with the MIDI Maestro, people were saying, man, I wish the Beat Buddy could do X, Y, Z, and all these other things. They wanted it to do everything. And I'm like, look, you have one pedal. There's only so much you could do with one pedal. You need more buttons in order to have more functions. And so that's how I came up with the idea for the MIDI Maestro, a way to flexibly expand the capabilities of the Beat Buddy. And I figured, hey, if we're going to do that, we might as well make something that could be used for other products as well. And so the MIDI Maestro could also be used with the Eros to give it a whole bunch of new functionality. So we created kind of a modular system that you could use just one product, or you could use them all, and they all enhance each other, and they all make it more powerful. So that was the idea. And with the Eros, the way I came up with that was, people were using other loopers with the Beat Buddy, and they were asking me, hey, can I do this with my looper? And the Beat Buddy, could I do that? And so I bought all these loopers to try to like test it and see what worked best. And, so I could advise our customers, which looper was the best to use with the Beat Buddy. And I hit all of them, I was like, these, I mean,
not one I like 100% yet either.
Yeah. They all had significant drawbacks, and they were all kind of difficult to use, because especially looping, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm like the,
Yeah.
the guy who just does, rhythm guitar and sing. So I'm like not a looping artist. I'm not like a particularly talented guitarist for
Yeah.
that matter. And so I was coming at it from kind of like a more of like a hobbyist perspective of not like a professional musician. And I wanted something easy, and all these loopers, the ones that were simple could only do very little, like you have like these cheap loopers, like the Ditto is the most famous one.
Yeah.
It's like $99, and it's great that it's cheap and it's small, but it could only give you like one loop, and like overdubs, you can't really do song sections. You're very limited to what you could do. You can't do different like size length loops with each other. And then you have it like more complicated things like the Boss RC300 is a famous example that people know. And that thing's like a massive monster. It's enormous, and it's also pretty complicated to use. You have to read this dense manual, and it's also not visual. You can't, like, one of the challenges I had with looping was especially if it's a long loop, like knowing where the start and end points are. The
Yeah,
loops,
exactly.
and like to be able to hear it, especially if you have more than one loop going, to be able to keep track of it in your head, of where all those loops begin and end, in order so like when to stop the song, when to move to a different section. It was very, very difficult, especially if like you have a rhythm section that kind of sounds similar, like if you have 4 bars of like, the same kind of chords, but like the fourth bar changes the last chord. So you don't know if you're on bar 1 or 3,
Yep.
it was very confusing. It was easy to get lost. So I thought I needed a looper where you could actually see the waveforms, see the loops going by, so you have a visual feedback. And that's why we created the first looper with a touch screen that shows you all the sound being recorded as you record it, which makes it a lot easier to play with. So that's how I came up with the Era. And so the way that our process works, to answer your original question, I know I kind of went off topic there, but the way our process works is I come up with the ideas. Of course, I'm always happy to hear other people's ideas.
Yeah.
I have no problem using other people's ideas, but at least so far, all the products that we've created have been primarily my ideas, and then I discuss them with my team and say, hey, what do you guys think about this idea? Can we make it better? And they, we kind of like brainstorm for like a period of time until we come up with something that we think is pretty solid from a product idea perspective.
Yeah.
And once we're pretty sure about what we want the end result to be, and we try to make it as detailed as possible, ideally with, the sketches of like the graphics on the screen, and like, a detailed description of what happens when you press this button and that button, or, and all that stuff. And of course the technical specifications of like what the sound quality should be, how much recording time it should have, all those things. And once we have all those details written out, then we talk to the engineers, and then they tell us, then they start doing research about like what components would be necessary to build something with these capabilities. And they do their research, and they say, okay, well, we could use this chipset, and that, this needs this type of PCB board and this type of screen and all that stuff. And then they, they kind of give a what they call a bill of materials, a BOM, and for short. And then we can estimate what that would actually cost us to build before we do all the engineering. And then we think, okay, so if this is going to cost us this much to build, how much could we sell it for? Is there a like a business, does it make sense from a business perspective? Because obviously you can make the greatest product in the world, but if it costs $1 million, only one person's going to buy it,
Yeah.
So it needs to be a price that people are willing to pay for the functionality that they're getting. So, I mean, I've come up with many, many products that we have not built because
Yeah.
because it fails at any one of these steps. It's either we can't flesh it out in a way that we think is compelling enough for the end user, or it turns out it'll be way more expensive than we think people are willing to pay, or, or it's just not possible with the current available technology to build something like this. I've had many, many products that I've thought of that have never been built. You know, that's just how it goes. The secret to having good ideas is to have a lot of ideas,
Yeah,
and once
exactly.
in a while you'll have a good one. So
You're
that's that.
obviously a pretty brilliant guy. I mean, as
Oh,
much
thank
as you got
you.
accomplished and went on to there. Uh,
Thank
like
you.
throughout the movie, how much of that was accurate portrayed of?
Whenever people ask me that all the time,
Yeah.
and my go-to answer, just because because I'm corny, is I say 69%.
It's not
9%.
50% like I said when you're if you're gonna
Yeah,
make it or not. Yeah. That's awesome.
69.420%. That's how much is accurate. I'm kidding.
Did you ever get into any sketchy situations that you'd like to tell us about at all?
I mean, yeah, but not like in the movie, like I was never, there are certain things that they do that they had in the movie because they needed to have a certain amount of like action,
Yeah.
to make it exciting, and they created, I mean, to be honest, it probably is about 70% accurate, and all joking aside, if I had to put a number on it. Obviously, it's kind of hard to put numbers on these kinds of things. There was a book written about it that the movie was based on by the same name, War Dogs. If you look for War Dogs on Amazon, you'll find the book, and the book is almost 100% accurate. I would say it was written by a journalist. It's, as far as I know, it's 100% accurate. It was based on interviews with me, with other people. I didn't write the book. It was written by a journalist. And it was based on interviews with me and with government officials and other people involved in the whole story. And he put the whole thing together. And it's, as far as I could tell, a very accurate portrayal of how the story actually happened. The movie is not a documentary. It's a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
They needed to have, like when you're making a Hollywood movie, you have to have a certain formula, it has to be 90 minutes long. It has to have a certain amount of character development, a certain amount of action, a certain amount of relationship drama, if you want to appeal to the girlfriend segment of the guys who are coming to watch the movie. So, like, for example, in the movie, they have this whole thing that you probably remember, where my girlfriend in the movie, played by Anna de Armas, she, in the movie, I was lying to her about my arms dealing. I was keeping it a secret, and that became a whole big, relationship drama issue in the movie. Yeah. In real life, my girlfriend, who is portrayed by Anna de Armas, she knew the whole time, and she was not bothered in the least about it. Yeah. All she wanted to know was that I was being successful. That's all she cared about. But they needed the relationship drama to make it a better movie, so they changed that part of the story. So that's like a little example of how Hollywood changes the story in order to like fit their formula. And obviously one of the things people always ask me about was, did we go to the were we really in the triangle of death, getting shot by insurgents and all that? And obviously they needed action to put it in the movie. That story is true, but not the way they put it. So the story did happen, but it didn't happen to us. So that story actually happened to the screenwriter of the movie, the guy who actually wrote the script. Yeah, before he was a Hollywood screenwriter, he was a journalist, and in 2003, right after the U.S. invaded Iraq, he wanted to write articles about it. And of course, he couldn't find any commercial flights into Baghdad. So he flew into Jordan, and he hired someone to drive him across the border into Iraq, and he got shot at by insurgents and the whole deal, just, like in the movie. So it was a true part of the movie, but not in the way they portrayed it. It didn't actually happen. Exactly. It wasn't our story. It was, they kind of combined that, someone else's story, just to give it a little bit, more action. So yeah, I mean, but I expected that, like when I first heard that they were going to make a Hollywood movie about the story, obviously I thought it was cool. I mean, how many people can say that a movie made about them, but I knew it wasn't going to be a documentary. I wasn't expecting that. And I think by and large, they kept the overall, structure and of the story, true. So I'm pretty happy with how the movie came out. I thought I was portrayed, as a nice guy, which I am,
Yeah.
totally true.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're actually
uh,
in the movie too, for people that didn't know that.
yeah, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
So you're actually in the movie also there.
Oh, yeah,
Playing
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a little cameo in the beginning of the movie. I'm playing guitar in a nursing home where the guy who was playing me, Miles Teller, is trying to sell bed sheets. I'm entertaining him. So yeah, that was interesting. An interesting experience. I flew out to LA to do the cameo, and the song that they have me playing in to a room full of 80 and 90-year-olds is Blue Oyster Cult's "Don't Fear the Reaper," which the director thought was hilarious. Um, Obviously, I wanted to play one of my original songs, to get some exposure as an artist. But he wasn't interested, like he was like, no, you're playing this song or you're not playing, So that's kind of how that went down. But so at the end of the filming of that cameo scene, they had to do a few more filming of just me. They didn't need the audience. They had like to do some close-ups or whatever. So they let the audience go, the group of 80, 90-year-olds. And the exit was right past me on the stage. So they all filed right by me, like 30, 40 people all filed right by me as they left. And a bunch of them stopped to talk to me. And it was just an interesting, some of them, some of them were completely like oblivious. They're like, oh, can you come to my home and play? Like, could you enter, entertainment, like I would love to have you play at my next birthday party, and I was like, okay, and some of them were like, oh, I heard what song you were playing. Pretty funny, and, but other people did not take it well. They're like, it's not funny. That is not cool. Really old. And I'm like, listen, I didn't pick the song, go blame the director. So yeah, that was a fun experience.
So while you were, I know you guys were doing different things other than just arms stuff. I mean, were you supplying like the night vision goggles that they portray, that kind of thing, all kinds of contracts too?
Yeah, we were actually doing a lot of random stuff. The weapons and ammunition was the things we specialized in, just because my ex-partner, he was like a gun nut. He like knew everything about every gun ever made. He was just like obsessed with it. I personally never to be honest, I never even like owned a gun, like before this, this whole story.
Yeah.
When we had our falling out, I actually bought my first gun because I thought, he was going to hire someone to kill me because he owed me millions of dollars, and it would be cheaper to hire someone to get rid of me. So that's when I bought my first gun. But what'd you say?
I don't blame you there. I mean, that's
yeah. No, I mean, it was obviously a very stressful time in my life, to put it mildly. But so I wasn't never really into guns before I got into the business. I didn't really know anything about it. He taught me everything I knew about government contracting and about guns in general. But we did do, so that was our main thing. We did specialize in that, and most of the money we made was from guns and ammunition. But we did do a lot of random other contracts. Like we did sell night vision goggles, scopes, magazines, cleaning kits for weapons, accessories. But we also sold other random stuff. Like I had a contract for socks, my first contract was for 50,000 gallons of propane, to an Air Force base in Wyoming, so we had like really, really random things, because the way the US government works is whenever they want to buy anything, they're required by law to post it on their site. It's still there, fbo.gov, if your listeners want to check it out. Federal Business Opportunities, fbo.gov. And pretty much everything that they want to buy is posted there. and like even stuff that like only some companies can make, like fighter jets, you know, they'll still post it there and they'll say this is a sole source contract, meaning only one person can bid on it. So, but they're still required by law to post what they want to buy, so that, you know, the American taxpayers know what their government is spending their money on. And in as many cases as possible, the government is required to make it an open bid process, you know, where anyone who you know, is registered with the government can bid on you know, supplying these items. So you can, you know, if, as long as you're registered, which, you know, is difficult to do, you can bid on selling them socks and boots and food and cleaning services and you know, all the other random stuff that the U.S. government needs. And so we did do a lot of just random, you know, things when we were like, oh, you know, this looks like it might be you know, worth some money, and we can probably find a supplier for this random item over there, and maybe we can find, you know, because a lot of people don't bid with the government. You know, a lot of companies never do any business with the government, even if they have really good prices. And I think the reason for that is because the government is just a pain to deal with. You know, they require you to fill out a lot of paperwork, and you know, and in this kind of business, you're bidding a lot and you lose most of the bids that you do. So, you know, it's kind of discouraging, because, you know, you'll put a lot of work into getting a really good price and arranging logistics and shipping, you know, and getting the prices for that and everything. And then you put it in your bid and then you lose, you know, and that happens 9 out of 10 times. So a lot of people don't like to sell to the government in the first place, which it opens up the opportunity for middlemen like what we were doing, to come in and find, you know, suppliers and you know, kind of act as a middleman for the government and take like a small percentage, you know, of in profit. So that's how we did it.
Have you seen the stuff recently that like people from the Pentagon and well, they released like the Tic Tac video of the UFO stuff, and now they've recently said that they've had parts of a craft that weren't built on this earth. Did you ever shoot anything to Area 51 or anything fun like that?
Man, I wish that would be I was definitely not, you know, high level enough for anything like that. Yeah. That would be incredible. I wish I could tell you different.
Yeah.
I wish I was lying right now and that I really knew something, but I don't.
You talked about that on the last podcast about some of the stuff that's been going on, you know, and so
yeah,
something we kind of laughed about. I said, so I wonder if you guys, I was talking to him after the podcast because I talked to you before. I said, I wonder if you dealt anything like that as far as any top secret materials or anything like that.
No, not really. Well, the only thing I would say that, you know, that gave us, you know, kind of like more insight into the government's operations than the average person would be, because we were like paying so close attention to all the things that the government would buy. Yeah. You could kind of predict what the government is doing, you know, like a few months in advance. So, which, you know, I'm sure, you know, all of, you know, anyone who's an international professional knows this, you know, but like, it was something I realized just as an ordinary person. Like, for example, you know, we saw, you know, like a bid go out for, you know, services in Chad, you know, in a country in Africa. And like they want, you know, it was like to build like a base there. And like, I hadn't seen anything in the news about any US operations in Chad at all. You know, nobody was talking about it. And then like 6 months later, I see in the news, oh, the US conducted an operation in Chad to like fight, you know, some Islamic terrorist group there, you know, Boko Haram, I think it was, I don't remember exactly, but and I was like, oh yeah, they were preparing for this 6 months back, setting this whole thing up. And now 6 months later, here it is, the news story. So you know, if you pay attention, I mean, this is all public information. It's not like we had like access to top secret info, but it's the kind of thing that people don't really pay attention to because it's just boring generally, unless you know what you're looking for. You know, so if you pay attention to the purchase patterns of the government, you could kind of get an insight of what they are planning on doing, you know, in all over the world, you know. So that's an interesting insight I had. But yeah, they didn't. They did not share with us any top secret information or anything like
Was,
that. They just required us to deliver what they wanted, and that's as far as it went.
was the partying and stuff that I mean, obviously you lived in Miami Beach. I'm sure that was some good times
Yeah.
at that age, huh?
Yeah, we definitely had some good times. I won't deny that. We definitely had some good times. But as far as compared to the movie, I think we worked a lot harder than the movie portrayed. Like it was a lot more work and a lot less partying than Hollywood would have you believe. Because I mean, Hollywood is selling a fantasy of like people living the life, and they don't show 18-hour days spent in front of a computer, and creating Google spreadsheets and emailing 30 different companies to get the best price and going back, like a lot of it is just grinding work. That's
Yeah.
the vast majority of it is grinding work. We did do some traveling internationally. We went to some trade shows, which were really exciting and very cool. We saw some like live demonstrations of like attack helicopters and things like that. So we did see some cool stuff. We met some, interesting people, to say the least, like generals from various countries and, ministers of defense and, the kind of people who, make things happen. So we met some interesting people, we saw some interesting things, but the vast majority of the time we spent was just grinding on our, on our computers in the office. That's really the reality of the business, is that the vast majority of it is just boring hard work.
How'd you end up in Miami?
What'd you say?
How'd you end up in Miami?
So my father moved to Miami when I was 8 years old, just for work. He had some friends here, and he came here for work, and that's and I just stayed because I like Miami. It's beautiful weather when there isn't a
It
when
just
there's
seems like that's where somebody.
nice. What'd you say?
It seems like that's where an international arms dealer should live, is on Miami.
Yeah, I guess so. That whole thing is just a coincidence. I mean,
Yeah. Oh wow.
we didn't come here we both grew up, my ex-partner and I, we both grew up here since we were kids. He was born here. I moved here when I was 8 years old. We knew each other, from a synagogue. We were both Jewish. So that's how we met. Our parents went to the same synagogue, and and neither of us liked to pray. So we would like hang out.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. But yeah, I mean, the whole, I know Miami's got like a reputation of being this kind of like shady city. But honestly, like it's just like a coincidence. It had nothing to do with our business, in reality. Yeah.
I got my girlfriend's actually from Florida too, over Bradenton area.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We go down there usually about once a year and spend some
Nice.
time at Bradenton Beach and
Nice.
like a little place out there. But man, I love it down there, especially in Montana in the middle of the winter here. It's 20 below, and you get there at 80. But yeah.
Well, the winter is the best time to visit Florida. The mosquitoes are gone and the weather is nice. Summer is not so nice. I mean, it's nice if you're going to the beach, but the mosquitoes will kill you. That's really the big downside of Florida in general, is the summertime. The mosquitoes eat you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the winter.
Where I live, we have a ton of mosquitoes up here too.
Yeah.
In fact, we always call it like the mosquito capital of the world here. But
oh, is it really? I always imagine Montana just being like mountains and fresh. That's how I always imagine.
A lot of it is where I live. I actually live on the prairie part, on the north central northeastern part. We're about 60 miles away from mountains. That we actually go hang out there quite a bit. But yeah,
nice.
We're a lot of farm and ranch land where we live here. And,
nice.
Yeah, everybody that thinks of Montana, it's straight to the mountains and ski resorts.
Yeah, it's because I know Montana through John Denver's songs.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Actually, one of the guys I have on the podcast, his name is actually John Denver Hould. I have him on often. Okay. And so he gets that all the time. He's like, "My name's John Denver," and people are like, "No, it's not." So he'll pull out his ID. But
Yeah, that must be. I'm sure that was cool in the beginning, but it probably got
Oh
old.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do you have any other hobbies that you do other than music and creating stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, I took up dance like around 2 years ago just to like, get into better shape. So that's
Yeah.
been, I work out like, you have to if you live in Miami,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can't wear big coats over here. So,
Yep.
and my latest hobby is flying paramotors. That's my new
Oh,
thing.
cool.
Yeah. So, do you know
The
what a paramotor
backpack
is?
kind?
Yes, exactly. So
Nice.
it's like a motor that you put on like a backpack, and it has a propeller, and then you have a paraglider, which is the like parachute, which is like in an arc shape,
Yeah.
and like pull the glider into the air, you run and you gun the motor, which pushes you, and then you take off into the air in your own little airplane.
Awesome. I've
So
always
it's
wanted to try that. I
yeah, it's
I almost bought one of those like the paraglider, the one that you actually sit in one time. Somebody had
yeah,
one for sale up here, and it was pretty cheap. And then I talked
yeah.
myself out of it. I just went, man, that I don't want to kill myself for $3,000 type of thing. But it was,
Well, you definitely do need training.
yeah,
I'm not, if you're going to fly, you should take the time and get training by a certified instructor. It doesn't take that long to learn how to fly, just about a week, you know. Yeah, 6 to 8 days, depending on how many hours a day you practice. But like within a week, you should be able to not kill yourself.
yeah.
And
If your motor dies, can you float down? Is it
what'd you say?
if your motor dies, does your parachute still hold on
Yeah. So
down? And
yeah, so the way it works is you're in a paraglider, which, as the name implies,
yeah,
glides. So if your motor dies, pretty much what happens is you just glide downwards like that, and you just, as long as you have a place to land,
yeah,
then you're good. If you don't have a place to land, you're screwed.
yeah.
Which is why one of the things that, and these motors do die occasionally. They're not like 100% reliable. I think on average they die like once every 30 to 40 flights, which is not that
Yeah.
rare. I mean, if you fly relatively often, that means every few months you're going to have a motor die on you. And the way you fly safely is part of your training, is you learn to only fly within gliding distance of a landing spot. So whenever you're flying, you're always looking at the ground saying, where, if my motor dies right this second, where am I going to land? I could land
Yeah.
there, I could land there, and you don't fly in places where if your motor dies, you have no place to land, because it could happen, so
Yeah.
don't fly it really low over trees, because if your motor dies, you're going to go right into the trees. You don't fly really low over like water, because you'll go right in the water. I mean, you could fly low over water as long as you're somewhat near the shore, or if there's boats around that could pick you up. There are safety devices that you attach to it. So like one of the things, if you're going to fly over water, you have what they call flotation devices, which you attach to like the shoulder straps of the device, which it has like a water sensor in it, and the second it senses water, it inflates so you don't
Oh,
sink.
cool.
So even if you crash into the water, you're going to be floating at the surface. You're not going to drown.
Yeah.
Before they had these devices, the biggest cause of death in the paramotoring sport was drowning. It was because people would land in the water, and you have like a 60-pound motor on your back, you sink like a stone.
Yeah.
So, but with these flotation devices now, people aren't drowning anymore, so
Wow.
it's much safer. But that's not to say it's 100% safe. It's safer statistically than riding a motorcycle.
Well,
So
I know all about that. So
if you're comfortable riding a motorcycle, from a statistical perspective, it's safer to fly a paramotor. So, as long as you get right training, obviously it's as safe as you make it. You could make bad decisions and kill yourself, just like riding a motorcycle.
yeah.
Uh, but as long as you get training and you're careful and you make responsible decisions, it's safer than riding a motorcycle. So, and in my opinion, it's one of the coolest things you could do. I mean, you're
What,
flying. It's like the motorcycle of the air.
yeah. What's your favorite thing to fly over? I mean, like you gotta.
Man, I love it all. I mean, I love flying down the beach. It's beautiful, you know. Obviously, because I'm in Miami, there's a lot of that. You know, it's probably most of the flying I do is near the beach. And the good thing about flying near the beach is that you have a much wider range time frame that you could fly in. So, paramotoring is very weather dependent. So if the wind is above 12 miles an hour, you can't fly because then you won't be able to take off. It'll drag you backwards, you know? Um, if the wind is, if it's raining, obviously you can't fly because the rain could collapse your glider. If too much water gets on the glider, it could like, you know, collapse it and then you fall like a stone. So you can't fly in the rain. You can't fly in high winds. You know, if you're flying near the beach, you don't want to fly if the wind is blowing out towards the ocean, because if the wind picks up, which sometimes it does, it could blow you out to sea and then you can't get back and
Oh
then
yeah,
you're, you know, so that's very scary.
yeah.
So the wind has to be blowing in the right direction. It has to be blowing the right strength. And also there's you know, turbulence in the air. Like, so what happens is during the day, especially if it's a very sunny day, what happens is the sun heats the ground, right? So like, you know, let's say the road is, and the dark patches of the ground heat up more than the light patches of the ground. So there's uneven heating on the ground. And the ground, when it heats up, it heats the air near the ground, and that creates these like bubbles of hot air, which then, you know, lift up and go and float up in the atmosphere. And that those rising bubbles are what they call turbulence. So if you're like, if there's a rising bubble and you fly through it, suddenly you're going from like smooth air and suddenly you get poof, you know, like the air like suddenly like knocks you around. And if it's very turbulent air, it could be dangerous. It could collapse your glider. So the ideal thing that you want to do when you're flying a paramotor is to fly when there's little turbulence in the air. And the least amount of turbulence is at sunrise and at sunset. So the best times to fly is sunrise and sunset, especially if you're flying inland. If you're by the beach, then generally there's a smooth, what they call laminar air, which is just straight air that's flying in, usually from the ocean in towards the land, which means that you could fly most of the day and there won't be much turbulence because, you know, the air like knocks out all those bubbles, you know, because of the difference between the ocean and the land. So there's that smooth cycle of air coming inwards. So the advantage of the beach is that you could fly much longer during the day. I'd say you have more flexibility of when you want to fly. But of course, you know, your view is limited to the beach because legally you're not allowed to fly over a city in a paramotor because it's an ultralight. You don't legally need a license to fly, but you do need to obey the airspace rules, which means that you can't fly over a city. You can't fly, you know, if there's like you know, airspace restrictions. You know, you can't fly over an airport. You know, obviously they don't want you crashing into airplanes and things like
Yeah.
that. So if you're taking off on the beach, you could pretty much fly up and down the beach. You can't fly in towards the city,
Yeah.
which is beautiful, but it limits your view a little bit. But if you want to fly inland, then you'll have to fly either at sunrise or sunset, which limits the time you can fly. But then you have more things to fly around. So like in Miami, there's like out by the Everglades, you know, it's not very populated. So there's plenty of places to go flying out there, you know, a little bit west of Miami, you know, when you get out of the city. So I mean, I love it all. Like, you know, I love beach flying. I love inland flying. You know, my bucket list is to go flying in Iceland over the glaciers. That would be
Oh, that'd be
amazing.
cool.
You know, I've seen videos of people doing it.
Yeah.
I also fly near the pyramids of Egypt. You know, that
Oh,
would
that'd
be
be
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so you know, I have a few places on my bucket list that I want to fly. So I couldn't tell you like, you know, any particular place has been my favorite yet because I love it
Yeah.
all.
Where do you buy a paramotor?
Oh, I mean, there's a bunch of different companies that make them. So there's different like pieces of the equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people who are new to the sport, they think it's all just like one thing, like buying an airplane, but it's
Yeah.
not exactly. There's three main components of a paramotor, or I should say the gear that you fly. The paramotor literally refers to the motor on your back, but you also need the glider, which is made by a different company. Usually, there's a bunch of different companies that make paragliders. So the paraglider usually costs about, depending on whether you buy it used or new, but new, they usually cost between $2,500 and $3,500. That's for the glider. And the motor, you have a few different motor manufacturers, and then you have many frame manufacturers, which is like the thing that they attach the motor to.
Yeah.
And you have different propeller manufacturers, which is a separate thing. So it's kind of like a modular thing. You can like kind of pick and choose. I want this motor, this frame. The frame is like the backpack kind of thing, when like the hoop that protects, and like the net which protects you from the spinning propeller. So you can like kind of pick and choose, and there's a lot of different advantages and disadvantages to all these brands, and it depends on the type of flying you want to do. Some people like doing cross country flying, where they just go on a scenic route, like for a few hours. You could fly up to 3 hours with these things, if you have a full gas tank.
Wow.
So it depends on the style that of flying you want to do. If you want to do cross country flying, you want like a wing with the glider that has like a high efficiency. It could go far for like less fuel. If you want to do acrobatic flying, which the more experienced pilots get into, doing like barrel rolls and corkscrews and all these crazy it's like a roller coaster in the air, like they do all these crazy tricks. Obviously you need a different type of glider, a different type of wing, that is more maneuverable. That comes at the cost of usually of being a bit less efficient. So it's not as good for cross country. So, and if you're a beginner, obviously you want a super stable wing that is never gonna give you any scares. So there's different types, there's different levels of wings, of gliders, depending on your flying skill and also on your flying style of what type of flying you want to do. And the same thing goes with the motor. If you're like a lightweight pilot, you want a lightweight motor because you don't need as much power to get you off the ground. And obviously the lighter the motor is, the easier it is to run with it, as you're trying to take off. If you are like a acro pilot, you want more power to be able to like do these types of tricks. If you're a cross-country flyer, then you want a more efficient motor that uses as little fuel as possible, so you can get further, for less fuel. So it's a whole world, like everything, it's like, like as there's many different types of guitars, and you couldn't suggest to someone to buy a specific guitar. It depends what kind of guitar playing you want to do, and what your budget is, and all that. And they each have their own advantages and disadvantages. And the same thing goes with the paramotoring world. It's a whole thing that you get into when you start flying. But I highly recommend to anyone who's looking for an exciting extreme sport. I mean, people call it an extreme sport. I don't think of it as that extreme, as like, if once you get the training, it's relatively safe. But it is amazing. I think the reward you get from it is, if you like it. Obviously not everyone, some people are scared of heights, and obviously that's not for them. But the amount of joy that you have from just like taking off and seeing the city from the air, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
I'm intrigued for sure. Like
yeah,
like it would be pretty fun.
Yeah, you're gonna spend a good, like, I would say a good $10,000 to $12,000 to get into it. So save your money.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a cheap sport to get into, because usually the training will cost between $1,500 and $3,500 depending on where you go. And a lot of instructors are also dealers in the equipment. So if you buy the equipment from them, they'll give you a discount on the training. So as I said, the glider usually costs in the $3,000 range. The motor usually costs in the $5,000 to $8,000 range, depending on the type of motor you get. So you're looking to spend, between like $10,000 to $12,000, for the equipment and the training. But once you have that, it's super cheap. The additional, it's like, it costs you like maybe like $3 in gas, to take like an hour You know,
Yeah.
it's very, very cheap once you have the training and once you have the equipment to fly. So it's like, think of it about it as buying a motorcycle. You know, like a motorcycle isn't cheap. You know, you want to
Yeah.
buy a bike, but that bike will last you and you'll get a lot out of it. So, you know, it's similar kind of price range of investment as a motorcycle.
We always said with motorcycle helmets, if you got a $5 head, buy a $5 helmet. So I mean, it's probably kind of the same thing, you know.
That's true. Yeah, I like. Yeah. It's the same thing goes with paramotors. You
Yeah, you
know,
probably want to buy quality equipment anyway, man.
yeah, you do want to buy quality equipment, and you should definitely be wearing a helmet. That's
Yeah.
100% recommended. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like an incredibly fun sport to get into. Like the older I get, uh, I gave up freestyle motocross about a year and a half ago from what I was doing, just because the older I get, the worse the ground hurts when you hit, you know.
I
But
hear you.
I've,
Yeah.
I've still kind of been searching for another thrill like that. I skateboard now and do
Oh,
some other
nice.
things, but that sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. I highly recommend. I mean, obviously, I do it myself, so I highly recommend it. I think the risk versus reward ratio is really good. You
Yeah,
know, because it's as long as you get good training and as long as you fly responsibly,
yeah.
you will very, very, very rarely get hurt. You know, I think much less often than if you're doing skateboarding, for example.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like the freestyle motocross that we do, you know, I mean, you've seen
Or motocross even more so. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
pretty high risk. So
yeah, exactly. Because the thing is that with flying, it seems scary because you're so high up and all that.
yeah,
But if you're flying in good weather, the likelihood of your glider collapsing and you falling is extremely low. You know, these gliders, they build them, you know, like with like supercomputer simulations to like, you know, and they do a lot of testing and they have certifications. They have, you know, it's a pretty sophisticated industry where they build
yeah,
these devices, you know, to be pretty reliable as long as you are responsible and you're flying in good weather. Obviously, if you're flying in the hurricane, you're going to die. You know, I mean,
yeah,
it's, you know, nothing's going to say, you know, it doesn't matter what equipment you have, you know, it's not going to be safe. But if you're flying in good weather and you get good training and you fly responsibly, it's very safe because in particular, because you're not flying that fast, you know, you're only going around 30 miles an hour, you know,
oh, yeah,
in speed. So like if you're driving a motorcycle and you're going 90 miles an hour down the highway, if you crash, you're dead. You know,
yeah,
you're going to hit the pavement, you're going to hit other cars, you know, that is, you know, you're going to die. But if you crash on a paraglider, you're only going around 30 miles an hour. It's still going to hurt and you might break a bone, but you're
yeah.
probably not going to die. You know, a 30-mile-an-hour crash is a very, very different thing than a 90-mile-an-hour crash. So you can survive most crashes on paragliders, and they also have other safety equipment. Like they have it's recommended that you fly with a reserve parachute. You know, that's like an extra parachute that you attach to your to the frame of the paramotor. So just in case your glider collapses or something, you have an extra parachute you could
Cool.
throw and you don't fall to your death.
Yeah,
There are safety things you can do. Now, obviously, it's not 100% safe. It's definitely safer to stay home and sit on your couch all day, other
it'll be
than, you know,
fun though.
yeah, it wouldn't be, and that kills you in other ways. You know,
Yeah,
you'll die of a heart attack or something. You know, so
exactly.
there's, you know, that has its own risks, but I think, you know, because you're not flying that fast, it's a lot safer than most other extreme sports, because even in an accident, you're usually gonna live to see another day and you'll recover, you know. And there's plenty of YouTube videos out there, crash compilations, you know, and things like that, where you'll see people get hurt, and people do get hurt, and occasionally people die. It's not a risk-free sport. But I think compared to most other sports of this nature, it's definitely on the safer side.
I
And
have
it's,
I
you
have
know,
buddies send me crash videos all the time of motocross things. I'm like, don't send that to me. I don't want to even
yeah,
like
yeah,
put it in my head. You know, it's
yeah, it messes with
think
you.
about
Yeah,
how you're gonna land it, not how you're gonna crash. But man, you got a
exactly.
convincing pitch there for me to get a paramotor.
No, do it, man.
That
Do
sounds
it.
like something that'd be pretty fun.
Here, I'll show you my baby. Hang on. I'll show you. I have it. I have it here. Hang on.
All right.
Actually, I brought in my outdoor furniture, so from the balcony
Oh.
because of the
Hey,
hurricane.
for those that don't know, Miami's just on the edge of a hurricane right now. Is
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this?
It's actually not that bad right now, but the rain is pretty much stopped. But hang on one second. Let me turn the light on here. So this is my paramotor right here.
Oh,
There
wow.
it is. Yeah. So that's this is the propeller. It's in a case,
Yeah.
but this is the motor. I don't know how well you could see
Yeah,
it.
I can see it pretty well.
So that's the motor. That's the gas tank down there. Hang on. There we go. So this is the the shoulder straps.
Yeah.
And one second. There we go. My helmet. Never fly without it.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And of course, with the GoPro, got to have the GoPro. Otherwise, it didn't happen, right? Pixar
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. See these things. This is the flotation device. See, it says power float. This on the shoulder strap, and as soon as this hits the water, it like blows up like a balloon. You know, it keeps you.
Oh, saves you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then you connect the this is the throttle here. So this is how you gun the engine. You know, that turns it on. This turns it off. And this thing right here, these are the carabiners. That's where you attach the glider, the paraglider. So that's, you know, these points right here. So yeah, that's my baby.
That's pretty cool.
My own personal flying machine.
How long have you been doing that?
About 2 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if you ever decide to go back into arms dealing, now you could just fly right in, right? Is that just
Well,
like James Bond?
yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe if I had like one gun to deliver, but
Yeah.
like it's pretty weight limited, so
Yep.
you can't. It's not very good for any large amounts of cargo.
No. Oh, that's cool though.
Yeah, you have to adjust the size of the glider for like how heavy you are, you know.
Yeah.
Because so like a lighter weight person would get a smaller glider, a heavier person would get a bigger glider. So, you know, so if you add a whole bunch of guns to the mix, you're gonna have to get. It could do it. You need to get a bigger. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Man, thanks for doing this for sure.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You got quite the story. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
I always hear people say, like, live your life like you want it to be the story of your own movie. Well, you have your own movie written about your life. And that's only part of your life, which is crazy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I never expected it. I was not at any point thinking that my life would end up being a movie or anything like that. It just happened, you know. And I feel like I was very, very fortunate and very, very lucky that you know, I managed to escape out of that whole thing without any, you know, major repercussions. You know, it could have gone a lot worse than it did, and I'm very, very, you know, grateful and thankful that that it didn't, and that it turned out pretty good for me. So, you know, I never take that for granted, and I'm really, really thankful that. That, you know, I'm these days doing what I love. I create the gadgets I want to play with.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, there's no better thing than that. So, I'm very, very fortunate. And
I'm excited to get my Beat Buddy, and I'll do a demo and stuff for it when we do get it. And,
awesome.
And I got another buddy. In fact, and I haven't even got that podcast uploaded yet. We did one a night ago. One of my friends that's a musician, and I was telling him about it, and he's like, "That's exactly what I need," because he plays like a lot of little breweries and different things, you know, and he's like, so who knows, I might get it and have to sell him that one and then upgrade for myself too. So
yeah, you should. It sounds exactly like what he needs. It's what any musician who needs a drummer, they should get a Beat Buddy. Even if you have a drummer to play with, you know, it's very useful because your drummer isn't always there for you. You know, like if you have like a song idea you want to work on, he's not coming over at 2 a.m, you know. Or, you know, or sometimes, you know, drums make a lot of noise, you know, so
to practice with a drummer in your living room or something, you know. I mean, I got the studio, but yeah, if you're a lot of times my guitar playing is just sitting on my couch, you know, so
yeah, exactly. So it's much more useful. And with the Beat Buddy, you could plug in a set of headphones and or just turn the volume down. So, you know, you have a lot more capabilities and a lot more options, to play with. And of course, if you're performing live, you can have you don't need to split the gig money with a drummer.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it replaces a
Nope.
drummer.
I get it though. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing like playing with another musician, but not everyone has that luxury of playing with another musician.
But
So
up here, everybody wants to be a lead singer, rhythm guitar player is what it seems like. There's so many people that I've got lots of buddies. They all got their own songs and everything else, but everybody, as soon as you sit down and start jamming, well, you're like, we got 4 guys sitting around with guitars. Now what do we do? Which one is going to play the bass? Somebody play the drums type of, so that's perfect.
drummers
Did you
are
ever
always.
think about taking it like on Shark Tank or anything like that when you were?
So I've had so many people tell me to go on Shark Tank, and I did apply. Unfortunately, I was rejected.
Really?
And apparently they have a policy that they don't accept convicted felons on the show. And
Well, at least now they don't own part of your company too.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I was lucky that the crowdfunding campaign went really well, and I didn't need to raise investment. So that wasn't, necessary for me, but I would have loved to be on Shark Tank, of course. It's incredible exposure, and
Yeah, exactly.
but hey, that's it's the price I pay for
Yeah,
having a movie made about me. I'm
for a
also
great story. Yeah.
exactly. So,
Well, once again, thanks, man, for doing this.
yeah, my pleasure. Just because you mentioned Shark Tank, it just made me think. My younger brother was invited to go on Shark Tank. He hasn't been on it yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's my partner in my company, Singular Sound.
Yeah.
He helped me build it, and he invented something new called InstaFloss. You can check it out.
Oh, I saw that on your Facebook page. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So it's a
Go ahead
device.
and plug it if you want.
Yeah, so it's a device that flosses all your teeth for you in 10 seconds. Everyone needs to floss, but everyone hates it.
Yep.
So check it out, InstaFloss or 10secondfloss.com. That's the actual website. You could either Google InstaFloss, just like Instagram, but flossing. So if you Google InstaFloss, you'll find it.
Yep.
Or if you go to 10secondfloss.com, you'll find it. And it's a device that flosses all your teeth for you in 10 seconds. We're going into, it's not on the market yet, but we're taking pre-orders at a reduced price for it. We just did a crowdfunding campaign for it, and it went really, really well.
Oh, cool.
Much better than the Beat Buddy, actually. We raised $860,000 in a month.
Nice.
So, yeah, so it's doing really well. And, we just started this company, this dental products company. So that's like, I'm continuing with Singular Sound. That's like my main thing. He's leaving Singular Sound, and he's not going off. We're still working out of the same office, but but his main focus is going to be this. And so he got invited to go onto Shark Tank. So hopefully, I mean, obviously it's not 100% because they could always cut you, they film more people who they actually show on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So they, there's not 100% guarantee he'll be on the show yet, but he was invited to go on. So hopefully next season he's going to be on Shark Tank.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you literally have one of the most unique stories I've ever heard of, and it's still going. So that's the best part.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Do you still stay in contact with anybody that you had prior to the movie, or?
You mean like from that business?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not in contact with my former partner. We are not friends. He stole millions of dollars from me.
Oh, wow.
That kind of ruins a friendship, you know? Yeah. Never paid me, so like all the money that we made together on that final contract, he kept it all. But hey, it is what it is. So yeah, we're not friends. He still lives in Miami from what I hear, but still being his scumbag self.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nowadays he's like investing in in lawsuits and things like that.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's an ugly business, but whatever. I don't think about him. I try not to think about him. Obviously,
I've had a couple falling outs like that with partners before, also. And you learn your lesson from it for sure. You know,
Absolutely.
it's one of those things, you know, you'd love to have the money, but you definitely
Yeah.
learn a lesson from it. And then going forward as a business person,
Yeah.
you're definitely better because of it, you know, so.
Absolutely. I only do business now with people that I believe are, honest and, good people.
Yeah.
So even if it seems like a big opportunity, if I think that someone is a shady character, I'm just not going to do business with. It's just not worth it. It never ends up well. You think, oh, I'll deal with this person's bad qualities and just make the money and get out, but it never works out like that. Like it always becomes a problem, and it becomes more trouble than it's worth.
Exactly.
That's been my lesson. So yeah, no, I'm not in contact with him. I am in contact with some of the people who worked in our company at that time. I became good friends with some of them, and
Yeah.
good people that were our employees at that time. So I'm still friends with some of those people. But other than that, I stay out of it. People are always contacting me because of the movie. They want me to teach them how to become an arms dealer. They want put them in touch with all my contacts in the arms business, and it's not something that really interests me anymore. Like I understand that the movie's exciting and that there are ways of making lots of money in that business, but because of my experience with it, I just don't want to have anything to do with it. So yeah, I'm in a business that I love. Why mess that up?
Well, and you got out, I mean, with only like the house arrest, you got out almost
Yeah,
scot-free in a way compared to what it seemed like it could have been. So
exactly.
that's
And
awesome.
I take that lightly, and I want it to remain that way. So I would rather make a lot less money and be free than
Yeah.
make money in the world and be in prison.
Well,
It's just
it's like with my former partners, you'd be halfway through the deal with them, and then all of a sudden, from an outside source, come tell me, "Oh, well, did you hear that he did this 15 years ago?" And tell me this big story, and I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me that when I first went into business with him?" Type of, kind of.
yeah,
So then it did end up coming out that yeah, but I mean, I've had that happen a couple different times with things, but I said you move
yeah,
forward and you continue on because I take with me my ideas and my knowledge anyway, so
right.
that's where it is. But well,
Yeah,
cool. Thanks for doing the podcast. And if
yeah,
I ever make it
perfect.
down to Miami, like I said, we're normally in the middle of Florida when we come travel, but I'd like to hook up with you and maybe go have lunch or something sometime.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, let me know if you're in Miami.
All right.
And
I'll send you the link once I get everything uploaded and everything too.
perfect. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All
Thanks.
right, good talking
Yeah.
to you.
See you later.
All right, bye bye.